Okay, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jack and I'm here with Liam
How's it going?
and a special guest, a first on the channel, Hidden Object Guru.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Good stuff. So obviously guys, we're talking about Switchback today, aren't we? So, let's just get the ball rolling, shall we? So, I'll start with you, Hidden Object Guru. So, what was your thoughts on it?
Okay, broadest possible terms, I've got to say, really enjoy the game. I think it's quite good to play. I think it's thrilling. I think the horror stuff works. I mean, it's not scary per se, but the jump scares work. You know, it's spooky. I'm almost surprised that it's M rated because it really does feel like a funhouse ride that almost anyone could go on. Like there's no swearing. There's really almost no gore. There's a lot of shooting off heads, but it's surprisingly sedate. Like there's these scenes where you have to choose where people live or die, and I guess that's the most intense thing. But their deaths. I mean, when you think of deaths in supermassive games, you think of extreme brutality, and it's not at all. Like there's nobody being torn apart. There's nobody being burned alive. I mean, somebody gets burned alive, but you don't see anything. Their skin doesn't even go black or anything like that. But yeah. Just physically, have you guys both played Rush of Blood?
I haven't. No, I'm not really a VR player. That's what I was going to ask you, actually,
okay.
like how it stands up against Rush of Blood and just VR games in general. No, I haven't.
Rush of Blood, I will always tell people, is the best rail shooter I've ever played in my life. I think it is miraculously good. The atmosphere is perfect. The flow of the game is perfect. The story ties into Until Dawn so elegantly to keep you really hooked. And this one, I think, is not as good as Rush of Blood. I think it's a fantastic experience. I think graphically, in many ways, it's more impressive than Rush of Blood. This is just me as a story guy first, because it doesn't tie directly into another game or indeed have a satisfying in-depth story of its own. I'm only going to be so engaged. And as a result, they could only get me with the mechanical gameplay. And the mechanical gameplay is stellar. But personally, what I love about Rush of Blood so much is it had all of that perfect mechanical gameplay, but it also had a surprisingly interesting story that really pulls you into that world and provides extra color on the world of Until Dawn, because the entire game is set inside Josh's head while he's turning into a Wendigo.
That's the thing. I've got to admit, 'cause I've watched your gameplay.
Yeah.
I know that you did say a couple of times, I think the story's maybe a bit lacking. I mean, even when I was watching it, it would cut, wouldn't it, to this section or this sequence where you're on a train, and it would crash, and of course the curator would pop up. I was thinking, how does this necessarily fit in? You're saying that maybe Rush of Blood, the story was a bit better there.
I
Switchback.
think so. I think the stories have, and the key is because the story in Rush of Blood, how shall I put this? The story in Switchback doesn't have anything to do with the experiences of the characters on the train, right? It's not like any of those characters are connected to the events of the Orang Medan or connected to the events of the Murder Hotel. Whereas in Rush of Blood, you're playing as Josh, and you are being haunted by all of the things you did and all of the horrible outcomes you caused, right? So you are going through metaphorical versions, and in some cases very literal versions, of all of the traps you made for people and all of the horrible things you did, right? And whereas this one, there's no real connection between the character you're playing as and what's going on in all of the various sequences. And that's what keeps the story from landing for me. Also, there's this very weird thing where, I'm making a video right now about the story, where I'm not going to say it's all a dream and you're not literally going to hell, but they go out of their way to make sure that all of the sequences that you go to, I haven't found it yet. I think except for House of Ashes, although there might be something in there I haven't seen yet. I'm still replaying it to check everything before I make my video, are hinted at in the train car. So the whole idea of you being on a roller coaster comes out of the fact that your character is trying to reconnect with her or his They never gender your character, although I have a theory about that I can get into in a video, or now if you want to hear it. Right, is trying to get reconciled with their sister who they haven't seen in years by going onto a roller coaster that they used to enjoy going on with their father years earlier when they were kids. Fun fact, the roller coaster they're going on to is the same one that Morello's brother, is it Frank, took Natalie on in the picture. So it's the same roller coaster.
I love that. That's actually a really cool theory. And to be honest, like, I prefer that than, the bus driver hit his head and went on a mad rampage.
It's a little better, yeah. Oh, the bus driver. We did find him. You can't say we didn't find him.
That is true.
But yeah, no. And so that is my issue with the story, is that fundamentally, because you don't feel tied into the events, I almost wish, and I know there's no way for them to do this, but I almost wish they had found a way to, I mean, you can't find a way to fit it within the stories of those games because they're very much not action games. But to posit yourself, and this is where you get into, is there a canon ending? And you can say, well, this would fly in the face of canon endings, right? But then again, Rush of Blood flies in the face and creates a canon ending where Josh gets turned into a Wendigo. Because Josh has two end states in that game. He can die or he can turn into a Wendigo. Well, Rush of Blood only happens in the turned into a Wendigo ending. So there's precedent for them being willing to do a canon ending for a spin-off. And I mean, I think it might have almost been better had they turned each level you've been playing as a decided character from one of those games, reliving a monstrous version of their experiences in some way. I think that would have been an interesting choice. Of course, that might have necessitated getting back voice actors and image likenesses and things like that. So I understand why it was probably impossible, but I think that would have led to a more satisfying story than what we got.
Well, one thing I wanted to say is that, to be honest, Jack and I both voiced that we don't own VR, so we haven't played these games, but to be honest, I think it's a game that is probably better to play than watch.
Oh, absolutely.
Because before I watched your one, I watched a non-commentary one, and I struggled to get into it, I'm not going to lie, because I'm just watching someone on a roller coaster shoot bits, and although it is really interesting looking at all the characters come back, revisiting all the locations we love from, the first season of the DPA, It was really fascinating, but I just want to comment, it was actually just epic seeing how much fun you had with it. I mean, you even titled the videos, my new favorite game.
Yeah.
But I love it. I mean, how does it... Obviously, it is chalk and cheese to the actual games they have. But yeah, do you think it's just great that they throw these bonus games out, that they don't just stick to their standard, here's the choice-based, interactive drama, here, have a VR shooter. It is really cool that Supermassive Games offer that difference,
it is. And it's one of my favorite things about them as a company is that they're willing to take these strange chances. They're not willing to let someone say, oh, well, I mean, we talked before recording about Quantic Dream, but it's if you're getting a Quantic Dream game, you know exactly what you're getting. And you can't say that about Supermassive Games. I mean, yeah, obviously they are most known for The Quarry now and for the Dark Pictures games, but when you start a Supermassive game, you can't say for sure exactly what you're going to get. They also made Tumble VR, which is, by the way, fantastic, and I wish they would put it out on PSVR 2. It's just wonderful block stacking game that I couldn't get enough of. But they used to make Move games. They've made Doctor Who games. It's a company that is willing to take interesting chances, and I love that they're able to do that. Because I mean, you think about it, they're kind of unique in a AAA space in the way that they make a lot of games. You think of most AAA developers, you're going to get a game out of them every couple of years, right? And I mean, this is not true in Japan. In Japan, you get annual games or more than once a game out of a huge number of developers. But in Western AAA field, you don't generally get multiple games a year from a studio, whereas Supermassive Games has been, the last couple of years, giving us multiple games a year in a way that very few companies actually manage to do. And at that rate, it's good that they're able to take chances, and it's good they're able to do these different things like a shooter. And just to be clear, I think the story is lacking, but like you say, in a way that is not really, you're not able to express and get the experience when you're watching a video. It's incredibly great to play. It is so thrilling to play. Like and I know you guys aren't VR, and I'm sorry to keep harping on about how good the VR is. The fact is, it makes you feel like you're in motion. It makes you feel wobbly. You know, having the stuff rushing past your face, it's incredible in the moment. Like, they really captured the feeling, captured the motion in a way they need to make it a wonderful experience. And I gotta say, it's as good or better, like the actual mechanical gameplay, as Rush of Blood. I want to make it clear that this is every bit the high quality game Rush of Blood is. Rush of Blood is just more narratively satisfying than this. Like, I'm not going to say that it's a better game than this, because I don't think overall the experience in VR, because, I mean, maybe I'm telling on myself here, but who other than me is coming to VR for the story? Right? But I got to say, it really is an incredible experience, and it is every bit the thrill ride that the first one was. I will say, I have heard a couple of complaints. One is that the levels are too long, because each individual track takes about 20 minutes to play. I think that only is true if you want to. I can understand feeling that way if you want to like sit down and play the whole game at a stretch. Like Rush of Blood, I would say those levels take around, it's not that much shorter, like 12, 15 minutes to play. But if you're playing 12 to 15 minutes, then you can wrap up the whole thing in 90 minutes, because there's only 6 levels in the game, right? And so, whereas I would defy anyone to really sit down and play Switchback all the way through from beginning to end, because each one of the 4 chapters is about 45 minutes. So you're looking at 3 full hours in VR, which I think is what people were talking about. Like, if I sit down and I just want to play one level of Switchback, which I've done a ton of times now, I find it's like kind of the perfect length. You sit down, you play for about 20 minutes, you go do something else. But if you were trying to sit down and play the whole game, no, I think that's when it starts to feel a little longer than it needs to be. But I don't think that's the fault of the game. I think that's how people are interacting with it. I think people were expecting to, like Rush of Blood, be able to just sit down and mainline the whole thing from beginning to end, but I don't think Switchback is designed that way. Although it's not like the developers have communicated that to us, so that's just my theory on that front.
To be honest though, I swear I read somewhere when VR was sort of like first coming into like the market that people were saying that actually playing it for about 20 minutes, you probably shouldn't exceed that. So whether that was conscious on their level, but you know, I don't know why, like whether it's like bad for your eyes.
Yeah, I think people can start to get a little VR sick and their eyes can get tired.
Yeah, that's literally it. So I think the fact that they broke it up, like each section into like these little mini ones, actually it did, you know, it probably is a little bit more palatable to the player, because like you say, you can drop it down and revisit it, you know, later on in the day or whatever. But,
oh, absolutely.
Otherwise, you become Brad vomiting after like one beer in Man of Medan.
Exactly, right? Oh no, I was going to say my one other issue, and the thing is, I can't even say that this is not a problem they've done before, because I think Rush of Blood suffered from the exact same issue. Is in both cases, they don't do a good job of like encouraging you to keep playing the game by filling it with unlockables and bells and whistles and like reasons to keep coming back. There's literally nothing to unlock in the game. And that's a problem for me. Like, when I'm playing this kind of game, I do love rail shooters. I play a ton of rail and stationary shooters on VR. And what you want is, you want to complete the game, and you want to end up with points of some kind or a goal of some kind. And you want to like unlock special weapons. You want to be able to, instead of just having like the special weapons be something you find in a level, you want to have like, to unlock an unlimited gun, you want to go play the game again with the better gun for the whole game. Like, you want to do stuff like that. You want to unlock art. You want to unlock like shooting range gallery challenges and things like that. And just, there's nothing. And that was true of Rush of Blood too. And it was a disappointment in Rush of Blood. It's a disappointment here. Like, there's the story mode, and that's it. And it seems, personally to me, that seems like an oversight.
I think as well, from what I've gathered from like watching your like gameplay as well, was that, because I think, was it, you know, when you played, you went like along the right track each time it diverted, you went to the right. Is it true that when you get to the end of the game, you ultimately take all of the left paths anyway?
No, that's no. When you get to the final level of the game, right, all you do is there are two key points in the game, right? One where you either fight the dolls or scarecrows, and one where you either fight dogs or the blink people. And if the first time you fought the blink people, the final level will make you do the dogs, and if the first time you did the scarecrows, the second time they'll make you do the dolls, right? But those are the only ones where they force you to do both. So yeah, those are the only ones where they absolutely say you must do both. The rest of the time, no, you get to choose, and you would have to play the whole game over to see all of the left-hand pathways or right-hand pathways, which I did. And I will say, there is replayability, and then you can go back and you can take all the different paths you did the first time. But it's not like there's a lot of really different stuff hiding in them.
Yeah.
I think there was only one unique enemy hidden in them, and a lot of it is just, well, do you want to do a puzzle or do you want to do a lot of shooting? Is basically, the difference most of the time. And I got to say, one nice touch that wasn't in the first game that was in this one is VR shooting puzzles, which was a nice change. Like things where you have to follow a cable and shoot the right fuse box and stuff like that, where you have to like use the UV light to shine it on a certain point and destroy that to allow you to progress. Like stuff like that was a really nice touch.
I felt it was very I like how they kept it relevant with that exact game. So like the UV light, with that game. And then obviously, Man of Medan, we get the blinking puzzle, right? And
yes.
I just wanted to touch on that, because that was a section that I've seen a lot of people say that it was their favorite part of the game, but it was too short. They wanted it to go on longer. I just wanted to ask, did you enjoy that scene? And do you kind of echo that opinion that you wanted more of that?
Well, what I think would have been weird, what I thought weird about it is, the only thing I found strange is not that it didn't go on longer. I thought it was strange that, it didn't happen more times in the game. There's only 3 blink sequences in the game, right? So there's that one. There's the one with the actual blink dummies. And then there's a bat monster, where the bat sarcophaguses move around when you blink. And there's a part in Dumet's Hotel where there's this row of mirrors, and if you see too many of them, right? If essentially, I say to see too many. Every time you blink, more zombies will appear behind the mirrors, and then so the more zombies there are, the more will attack you. And it's this blink mechanic is so good. It's not that any individual one of those sequences I would have liked to see be longer. I would have liked to see more of them because it's such an amazing effect. And it's Doctor Who. We all know what it's based on.
Yeah.
Right? And we all know what it's based on, but the crazy part is, until you play it and until you see it happening, you kind of can't believe it's going to work as well as it does. But the frame rate is so fast that they literally change the whole world every time you blink, and you, like I said, you almost can't believe it's happening. It's so well done. It blew me away. So yes, I too am one of those people who just can't get enough of that blink sequence. I think it is magnificent. Also impressive, and people talk about it less, but there's also a second kind of blink monster, well, not blink monster, where there are dummies that only move when you're not looking at them, and it does eye tracking.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so if you look at one, and you can, in the corner of your eye, see another one walking towards you, and if you look over at it, the first one will start walking. It's so creepy.
I just have this image of you trying to go cross-eyed to track everything in the ring.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, and for the record, yes, you can cheat. As I've always said, the Weeping Angels aren't actually that difficult to defeat because you can cheat them by closing one eye at a time. And you can cheat the blink monsters in this by closing one eye at a time. That said, they don't actually let you do, there's no option to not fight them. The blink mannequins do block the road until you kill enough of them. So you have to do it, but you can choose the pace at which you want to do it by blinking only when you choose, because winking does easily defeat the Weeping Angels. But yeah, it's a magnificent sequence. It is truly incredible. Best boss fight of the game is the Dumet boss fight, not surprising anybody. Boss fights are a little lackluster. I think it's really hard to do a boss fight in VR in a rail shooter at all, let alone a VR rail shooter. It's really hard to do a boss fight well. It's not like Rush of Blood had great boss fights. Interestingly, Rush of Blood, I think, only had one good boss fight, and that was the final boss fight against Larry Fessenden. Whereas this one, the Dumet, is the only really good boss fight. Mostly it's just, there's a main enemy who is who will come up and hit you periodically, and also they'll send little enemies after you. And it's just the same fight over and over again. And while there's an element of that in the Dumet boss fight, the fact that you're also constantly trying to hit all sorts of environmental things to do damage to him just makes it feel like you're solving a puzzle while you're killing him, and it elevates the whole thing. So yeah.
I've got to say, I do think that obviously we've talked about the blinking bit, and yeah, you said about the sort of the showdown with Dumet. I think for me, I think that the Man of Medan and the Devil in Me sections were perhaps the strongest for me, and I think it is those puzzle elements. I even think in Devil in Me bit where is it you've got the stun gun and you can use the incinerator and you can use the glass,
the crushing walls. That's such a nice part.
Was that your favorite section as well?
I think the Dumet section is the most impressively designed and probably my favorite, simply because there's so much to do in it. And also, it's the only one of them. Okay, so most of them, I don't know how familiar you guys are with, the different kinds of thrill rides, but basically there's, I don't know how many carnivals you've ever gone to or amusement parks, but there's the roller coasters that move you incredibly fast and do loops and dips and twists. And then there's dark rides where they slowly creep you through a thing and give you all sorts of scares along the way.
Yeah.
And very pointedly, the Devil in Me section is themed not as a roller coaster, but as a dark ride. You never go particularly fast in it. It just kind of creeps you through the whole thing, confronting you with all of these monsters and all these puzzles one after another. And so it really is refreshingly different from the rest of the game in a way that I found very good. And I found the puzzles themselves to be extremely well designed. Now, one thing though that does not play in the videos, I looked into my videos and I'm sure you noticed this, that doesn't really play at all is how wonderfully atmospheric the Little Hope is. You can't see it in the videos, but when you're playing the game, the Little Hope sequence is so creepy and so well done. A combination of moving stuff at the edge of frame and amazing sound design, it makes the Little Hope sequence it is by far the creepiest and scariest part of the game to play, but unfortunately, you would have to play it in VR to get the effect at all. It does not play at all if you're watching it, period. And that's too bad, because it's one of the high points of the game in a very strange way. But I think the two top sections, just gameplay-wise, definitely I would say Devil in Me and Medan in that order. Sadly, the creepiest part, Little Hope, and the weakest one is, tragically, House of Ashes.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about House of Ashes, because I have seen mutually, a lot of people say that is the weakest one. Now, do you think that falls down to the symbol shooting? Do you think that was kind of a weaker element? What is it that makes it the weakest of the 4 sections?
The symbol shooting isn't great, but I think the biggest problem is that the level feels underpopulated with stuff. The caves just aren't that interesting a location, because it's just, more cave walls, more cave walls, more cave walls, and there aren't that many. When from pretty quickly, all of the different parts of the temple all kind of start to look the same. I think it's just there's not that much visual difference, and the enemies aren't that interesting. It gets a little more interesting when you get to the Blood Pit, which is a very cool sequence. But then you spend almost time in the most exciting location, the spaceship. The spaceship, you don't explore the spaceship at all. And it's a real disappointment, and I don't know how they made that oversight. That whole extended sequence, the part that Salim and Jason travel through, you never go there.
Yeah.
And it's crazy that got left out. Maybe there were technical issues. Maybe they couldn't keep the frame rate up with that much detail. I don't know why it's not in there. But it is tragic that it's not in there because it makes you feel like hey, House of Ashes is my favorite game in the series, And so I was most excited to see what they did with it. And so it was crushing disappointment to find out that they did nothing with it. But fundamentally, I think there's just not enough variety in the environments and the dangers in that one. Yeah, I don't think shooting symbols and the flare gun stuff was that interesting of a mechanic. But, it's not like it's a terrible mechanic. I just think there's not enough variety, there's not enough stuff to do, and there's not enough variety in the visuals. It just looks too samey the entire time. And because
I did really enjoy the section when you were playing it, when you sort of saw one of the dead aliens on the floor. And I don't know if it was a mistake, but then you were saying oh, we're going to get aliens next. And then they pop out and there was just a lack of surprise because you just called it. I love that bit.
Yeah, that was fun. I did enjoy that. The parasites as enemies I wasn't a big fan of. That's just me. I found they jumped a little weirdly and took way too much damage. Although, that's my pet peeve. I think the game probably, and maybe I'm the only one saying this, I don't know. I would kind of prefer it if everything took less damage, but you actually had to hit things, rather than game having huge auto-aim and everything is a bullet sponge.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, I completely
That's just a personal thing. Yeah, because I'm not exaggerating when I say it's actually kind of hard to miss your enemies in this game.
Yeah, I was going to say, because a big part of it as well, you're shooting the yellow things to get your combos going, right?
Well, that's the weird part about the game, is it never communicates how to increase your multiplier. It never tells you how to do that. And I assume it shoots a certain number of yellow things, but the game isn't really great at, telling you how many. I feel like it would be massively helped if there was a meter, on your score meter, there was a little thing showing you how many more, targets you had to hit to increase your multiplier. Because it doesn't tell you that, and it's really kind of frustrating. And honestly, maybe it has nothing to do with the pentagrams. I honestly can't tell you if it does have anything to do with the pentagrams. I know the pentagrams give you double score, but do they also contribute to the multiplier? Who knows? Are headshots how you multiply? I don't know. The game never tells you.
Oh, right. Interesting.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the other thing is the game, especially in House of Ashes, they're really frustrating for score hunters. There are these incredibly frustrating sequences where the game will drag you along for 40 seconds with nothing to shoot. And it won't turn off the degradation of your multiplier during that. So essentially, if you're going there trying to chase a high score, you end up in these whole sections of the game where you're just being dragged along for 40, 45 seconds, watching your score disappear. And it can be very frustrating. Yeah.
I can imagine.
But I'm sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, no, I was just it was a while ago that I watched it, so forgive me if I've forgotten anything here, but is there actually a point to the whole point screen? Is there when you finish the game, is there a leaderboards or at the end of each
there's a leaderboard. There's a global leaderboard. Yeah, for every level. There's a leaderboard for every one of the 9 levels. But that is the only thing. It is only a leaderboard to compete against other people. And here's something that goes to, I feel like they didn't think this entirely through. If you want to replay the tutorial, which I had to do because I'm collecting footage, if you want to start your run over from the start, you have to erase all of your high scores and progress in the game.
Oh.
And I don't know why.
All right. That is interesting.
Why didn't you
sounds
just
like
leave?
The Quarry, when you go to the clues and you have to replay it and you have to collect all the clues again. That was an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it's definitely that kind of thing. Oh, the Quarry.
The one switchback question I wanted to ask actually was, now I looked at the IGN review for it on YouTube. Now I always often disagree with IGN reviews. I think they're often way off from what I would guess myself.
Right.
But one of the things they criticized the game heavily for was the jump scares, saying they felt tacky. Now in some areas I guess that is going to happen. It is a horror game. They had to throw jump scares in. But I was actually really impressed with some of the jump scares. I'm picturing one already in Man of Medan where these guys are coming through this mirror on the left So you look right thinking, they're going to be the reflection. But then it turns out it's not a mirror and they break the glass. I was really impressed by it.
Fantastic.
And I just wanted your... Yeah, it's great. And I just wanted your opinion on what you thought on the jump scares and the horror element of
I gotta
the
say,
game.
that I did not watch the IGN review, but I will say, I thought the jump scares were fantastic. I don't know what they're talking about. That is so baffling to me, because one of the high points of the game for me was how good the developers are at like directing your attention where they want it. Like, they're so good at making you look in a certain direction at a certain point so that they can like come at you from the other side with a scare. Like, that's one of the best things about the game, is how masterfully they organize things. Like, no, it's like the horror stuff, and again, I say it's more spooky than scary, and I think it really is. And it really does have that dark ride feel of like a thing jumping out of you from a cupboard. And they say it's, cheesy or corny or whatever, but it's like, that's what we're here for. It's a thrill ride. We're here for that kind of like adrenaline rush. And no, I think the game did a spectacular job with it. There's not only that, I loved all of the jump scares in what do you call it? In Little Hope were fantastic. Like the way they will, the way the drowning woman crawls up on you, the way you'll be going through a field of the hanged ladies, and then suddenly they'll start kicking at you, and you're like, ah! It's so freaky.
Yeah. I love the tunnel as well with Mary in it, where she pulls your hand in.
Oh, I know. Such a good moment. Yeah, like the game is full of these great, really surprising moments like that, and I thought they were spectacular. Like, they give you the exact kind of chills and jumps that you want out of a game like this. I mean, did they all get me? No, because I saw a bunch of them coming, but enough of them got me that me, a jaded jerk, still got to, yelp in surprise. And if you want proof of that, as you've mentioned, my video is online. Like, you can see me jump and yelp in real time when some of this stuff happens. No, it's very high quality. I think they did a great job, and I think they knew exactly what experience they wanted to craft for the player. Like, they knew exactly what kind of funhouse experience they were trying to make, and they did a great job of making it. It's just, like I said, I would have liked better story stuff. I would have liked bells and whistles and like bonus stuff to do, but again, as a game, I think it's a stellar experience that anyone with a PSVR, like, there are two games right now that everyone with a PSVR needs, and that's Resident Evil 8 and this. Period.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 8, by the way, perfect in VR. Like, it's I can't believe how good it is. I know you're not VR people, but wow. It's so incredible. I mean, any first-person game tends to be better in VR, but this thing is just, it's magnificent. It goes above and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, I was really scared with RE7 and to learn that's on VR. I'm like, I don't know if I want to touch that game, to be honest.
It's terrifying. Like, Resident Evil 7
really
is legitimately in VR. I mean, when Mia's coming up that staircase toward you, I close my eyes. I can't deal with that. It's too intense. Of course. No, great game. And
couldn't imagine.
Oh, it's so good in VR. And Resident Evil 8, the baby sequence. No, I just noped my way through it the entire time. Like, however impressive you thought that baby was in VR, it's a complete nightmare. Like, you can't focus on anything else but it. It's so much more stressful in VR. It's an incredible experience, and that's what you get here. Like, you get this really intense experience. Like, you get, I mean, it's, like I said, mostly spooky, but every now and then, especially in the Little Hope sequences, when you're like completely lost in shadow, and then there's lost in fog, and then these shadows moving around towards and away from you. Like, it's very, very creepy, and I loved it. Weird thing about the game? A surprisingly large amount of the enemies are the Tanya model.
I was gonna say that, like, even on the cover.
She's the main villain.
Which one is it? Is it House of Ashes, or there's one of the games?
House of Ashes, like, they're all Tanya.
Where at one point there's like, there's like 3 of them at one point, and I'm
all
like,
Clarissa.
I often criticize the game for having the Daniel
over and over
done
again
to death in the main DPA games. But in this one, it literally just has Tanya. Like, she's on the train. She's like,
she's the main. she's the main villain.
The Clarice model in House of Ashes is going.
Yeah, she's the main villain. She's the cover girl model. She's the flame, like the hanged woman, and the log are both Tanya's. And then you get to the next one, and it's just all Clarice. Like, Clarice is everywhere, because, like, both of the main types of vampires that attack you are the Clarice vampires. So, yeah, that Tanya model is all over the place. I mean, she doesn't appear at all in, unless somebody tells me that Dumet's mother is secretly the Tanya model. No, she doesn't appear at all in Devil in Me, but she's in the rest of the game, like, quite extensively. So, yeah, like...
I can only assume that was intentional because the main
because the main villain is her.
The name is
Belial. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I'm sure it was intentional.
Has the same.
Yeah, and that has led to a big clue, which is if she's a devil, does that mean it's confirmed that the curator is the angel of death? Yeah.
Ooh.
Because
I like that. We're always theorizing about the curator, and I love curator theories.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what the game director in an interview said. It's probably meaningful that you never see the curator and Belial together. And I'm like, okay, well, that can mean two things. One, they're the same person, and the curator is just putting on the show for you. Two, she's a devil and he's an angel, would be the other possible interpretation of that. And since there's already a huge amount of clues pointing to him being the angel of death, that's a pretty big one pointing in that direction.
It's a good shout. You know what? While we're on the topic, talking about potential, Easter eggs and things, is there anything that you may have spotted in this game that could refer to Season 2 at all?
Well, I want to know what's going on with that hulking figure in the background. Like, there's a hulking figure in the background of Medan, and I have searched for him in, like, the rest of the game and found nothing. But what I will say is there's endless references to moments from the various previous games. I didn't spot anything pointing to a future game. It's very strange. Like, we've seen this spider imagery over and over and over again, right? And so I kept expecting a spider to show up as a nod to that. But nothing. Like, there's not, like, I searched around the spaceship. Every time I looked around the spaceship, I'm like, is there any clue for 8020? Like, am I seeing anything that might look like the mold we've seen in 8020? Didn't see anything like that. I looked at all of the tombstones to see if one of them had an intercession inverted cross. Nothing like that. My big thing is, I am one of these people. I don't know how big this theory is. I know that a bunch of people share this opinion with me, but I don't know if it's a big one. I'm pretty sure the scarecrows we keep seeing are about Craven Man and are going to feature in Craven Man. And there is a scarecrow sequence in this game, but it is the one and only thing that I saw in this game that I definitely think, yes, that is related to an upcoming game. Because I didn't see anything like when you go into another thing I was looking for was I kept expecting one of the road signs in Little Hope to be the Winterfold Bloodhand road sign. But no, it's not. None of them. So yeah, like the one thing I will say that I think with I would say 80% confidence, I think the scarecrows are about Craven Man. But that's the only thing I can say, and even that's only 80% confidence. Like there are specific hints I kept looking for, like all around the spaceship. I'm looking. There's got to be something about the mold or the name of the ship somewhere hidden somewhere in this. But no, I didn't see anything. It was kind of weird actually. I kept expecting to see stuff.
To be fair, like you are whizzing along on
it's true.
Like if you're managing to pick Easter eggs like that, that's pretty damn
you're right.
Attentive on your part.
Okay, that's a good point.
I didn't spot anything either.
No, and one thing though is I did notice that there are shadowy, mysterious figures in the training area. There are 2 so far. There might be 4 because there are 4 people to rescue. So there might be additional shadowy figures that I haven't found yet in the training mission. But unfortunately, to see the training mission, like I said, you have to start the whole game over and reset your progress. Yeah. Which, again, not the best design, but I am intrigued to see if I can find any more of those shadowy figures, because I've officially found 2 of them. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they're shadows of the people who are in the train crash. But again, I can't say for sure because I haven't seen all of them.
To finalize the video there, Hidden Object Guru, just nice general one for you. If you had to rate Switchback out of 10, what grade are you giving it?
7.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
7 out of 10. For a VR shooter, that's actually a pretty good grade.
Yeah,
I'd say that's very fair.
Mechanically, I think it's, like I said, beautiful mechanically. 7 out of 10. I'm not saying the story is costing it points. I will say the lack of bells and whistles, the lack of more stuff to do, the lack of like a shooting gallery and challenges and unlockables, that's what's keeping it from being the higher rank. If you put in all the bells and whistles, this could have been an 8.5, and if you added in, found a way to make the story really hook the player, the way Rush of Blood hooked the player, this could have been a 10 out of 10 game. And again, I'm just going to say it, I don't know what the graphics problems people keep talking about are. And I think, maybe this is just because I'm a super old man, but the idea of complaining about a 20-second loading time is absurd to me.
Yeah.
Everyone keeps talking about these insane loading times. I'm like, you do 25 minutes of a mission, and then you have to wait 20 seconds for the next 25-minute mission to load. I'm fine with that.
We live in a generation where people want their funny videos condensed into a 7-second TikTok, so it's like a 20-second loading screen, and we're like, oh god, that's too much.
Okay, you're right. I mean, it's not me, it's not my complaint, but you're right. I should be more reasonable in understanding other people's complaints. But literally the only visual issues I've noticed are there's some pop-in. Every now and then, I will see some texture pop, but honestly, I barely notice it. So, yeah. Not an issue for me. I've had no technical qualms about the game. Final thought is, I really do think it's a must purchase.
Yeah, there we go, guys. The Hidden Object Guru has spoken. If you guys that have been watching played Switchback, do let us know in the comments what your thoughts on it are. Maybe you disagree with some of the views that we've got here. But, mate, have you got anything else to add, or should we wrap up?
Yeah, just obviously Hidden Object Guru's gameplay footage, we're going to link it in the description. If you're a fan of us, you're probably a fan of him as well. He's got 28k subs more than us, so I'm sure you've already seen it. But if ever in doubt, it's down in the description if you want to check that out. Thank you very much for joining us, Hidden Object Guru. It's been a pleasure talking to you about Switchback.
Absolutely happy to do it. Thanks for having me.
Alright guys, we'll see you in the next one. Ciao for now.
See you next time.